Little Johnny was causing a lot of trouble in his first grade class. One day his teacher had enough. "Johnny," she said, "what is your problem?" Johnny said, "I'm too smart for first grade. My sister's in third grade, and I'm smarter than her." So the teacher took him straight to the principal's office. She explained everything, and the principal said, "Okay, Johnny, I'll give you a test. If you miss even one question, you're going back to first grade. Deal?" Johnny nodded. "Deal." The principal started with some math. "What's 3 times 3? 9, Johnny answered instantly. 6 times 6? 36, Johnny shot back. The principal went on asking more questions, including spelling, science, and history from the third grade books, and Johnny got every single one right. After the principal said, "Well, I think he belongs in third grade." But the teacher raised her hand. "Can I ask him a few questions too?" "Go ahead," the principal said. The teacher looked at Johnny and asked, "Johnny, what does a cow have 4 of that I only have 2 of?" Johnny smiled. "Legs." The teacher nodded. "Okay, what do you have in your pants that I don't have?" The principal's eyes went wide, but Johnny calmly said, "Pockets." The principal let out a deep breath. The teacher asked again, "What does a dog do that a man steps into?" Johnny thought and said, "Pants." The principal looked like he was about to faint. Last question. "What starts K and is full of excitement?" Johnny proudly shouted, "Fire truck!" The principal wiped sweat off his forehead, looked at the teacher and said, "You know what? Put Johnny in the 5th grade. I got the last 4 questions wrong myself." An older guy walked into the DMV to renew his driver's license. The lady behind the counter smiled and said, "Good morning, sir. Just need to ask you a few questions." He nodded. "Sure, hit me." She asked, "Do you still wear glasses while driving?" He said, "Only when my wife is in the passenger seat." The lady laughed. "Why's that?" He said, "Because she sees things I don't." She smiled and kept going. "Any medical conditions we should know about?" He said, "Yeah, I have selective hearing." She looked up. "Selective hearing?" He nodded. "Yep, I can hear my buddies say, 'Let's grab a burger' from across a parking lot. But somehow, I never hear my wife say I'll take the trash out." The people waiting nearby started chuckling. The clerk said, "Sir, I don't think that's a medical condition." He grinned. "Maybe not. But it's kept me married for 42 years. She shook her head and continued. "Have you had any accidents recently?" He thought for a second. "Nope. Any close calls?" He sighed. "Just every time my wife says, 'Turn here,' after I've already passed the turn." More people in line started laughing. The clerk said, "So, who usually gives directions?" He answered, "My GPS." She smiled. "Then why do you miss the turns?" He leaned in and whispered, "Because the GPS says in 500 feet, turn right. My wife says, you should have turned back there." Now they're arguing with each other. And somehow, I'm the one who's wrong. Even the security guard laughed. The clerk finished typing and handed him his new license. She said, "Congratulations, sir. You're all set." He looked at the card, looked back at her, and frowned. "Ma'am?" "Yes?" "This says it expires in 8 years." "That's correct." He sighed dramatically. "I was hoping it'd expire next week." She looked confused. "Why?" He smiled and said, "Because if my wife finds out I passed the vision test, she's gonna make me drive everywhere. And trust me, that's a lifetime sentence." One afternoon, Johnny Carson walked into a busy office building for a television interview. The lobby was packed. People were rushing everywhere. Johnny smiled and stepped into the elevator just before the doors closed. A young businessman squeezed in at the last second. He looked stressed. He kept checking his watch every few seconds. Johnny smiled and asked, "Big meeting?" The man nodded. "The biggest presentation of my career." Johnny grinned. "No pressure." The elevator started moving. It reached the 5th floor. Then suddenly, it stopped. The lights flickered. Everything went quiet. The businessman immediately pressed the emergency button. Nothing happened. He looked at Johnny with panic in his eyes. "What if we're trapped in here all afternoon?" Johnny stayed completely calm. He leaned against the wall and smiled. Well, at least nobody can ask me to host another meeting. The businessman didn't laugh. Instead, he became even more nervous. What if the air runs out? Johnny looked around dramatically. I think we're safe. I've survived television executives. They use up a lot more oxygen. The man started pacing inside the tiny elevator. I can't miss this meeting. Johnny nodded. I understand. I once missed a haircut. The man stared at him. That's not the same thing. Johnny smiled. No, but it grew back. The businessman sighed loudly. I don't know how you're staying so calm. Johnny shrugged. When you're on live television for years, you learn that panicking never fixes anything. Then Johnny pressed the button for every floor. The businessman looked horrified. Why would you do that? Johnny smiled. If this elevator starts moving again, I'd like it to feel appreciated. Just then, the elevator suddenly came back to life. The doors slowly opened. The businessman sprinted out so fast he almost forgot his briefcase. Johnny picked it up. Hey! The man turned around. Your briefcase. Oh, thank you. He grabbed it and took a deep breath. You know, I've never been so happy to see a hallway. Johnny laughed. I know the feeling. The businessman smiled. I'm taking the stairs from now on. Johnny nodded. Good choice. Then he added with a grin, stairs may take longer, but at least they never stop in the middle of a conversation. The businessman laughed for the first time all day. As Johnny watched him disappear down the hallway, he smiled and quietly said, sometimes the elevator isn't the thing that gets stuck. It's our imagination. Then Johnny stepped back into the elevator, looked at the doors, paused for a second, and said, you know what? I'll take the stairs too. One morning, I woke up because someone was knocking on my door. I opened it, and there was my neighbor standing there with a serious face. He said, good morning. I noticed your car has been parked outside for 3 days. I said, yeah, so? He looked at me and whispered, I think something is wrong. Now, when a neighbor says something is wrong with your car, you immediately start imagining expensive problems. Engine? Battery? Flat tire? Maybe the car has finally given up on life. So I ran outside. I checked the tires. Perfect. I opened the hood. Everything looked normal. I started the engine. It worked perfectly. I looked at my neighbor and said, so, what's wrong? He pointed at the car and said, you haven't moved it. I said, yeah, because I'm not going anywhere. He stared at me. Then he nodded slowly. I knew it. Knew what? He said, I knew something was wrong with you. I stood there in silence. I wasn't even angry. I was impressed. This guy had somehow turned a simple parking problem into a medical diagnosis. I said, thanks for checking on me. He smiled proudly. No problem, that's what neighbors are for. Then he walked away. I went back inside, closed the door, and looked through the window. 5 minutes later, he was still standing beside my car. Apparently, he wasn't done investigating. At that point, I realized something. Some people don't have hobbies. They have neighbors. One afternoon, I was sitting at home looking absolutely unemployed. You know that special look you have when you're waiting for a package? Messy hair, old t-shirt, shorts, and the confidence of a man who has achieved absolutely nothing that day. Suddenly, ding dong! The delivery guy was standing at my door with a package. He smiled and said, package for you, sign here. I looked at the paper. Then I looked at him. And for some reason, I decided to become a celebrity. I said, wait, do I look important enough to be signing autographs? The delivery guy stared at me. Not for 2 seconds, not for 3 seconds, but long enough for me to start questioning every decision I've made since birth. Then he calmly said, no. I laughed, because I thought he was joking. Then he added, that's why I need proof it was actually you. Bro, that hurt more than getting rejected by someone you secretly liked. I was standing there holding the pen. Suddenly, I didn't want the package anymore. I wanted therapy. I wanted a new identity. I wanted to move to another country and start over. But the worst part? He still needed my signature. So I signed it. He looked at my signature and said, perfect. Perfect, sir. You just destroyed my confidence. And now you're complimenting my handwriting? I took the package, closed the door, walked back inside, looked at myself in the mirror, and whispered, maybe I'm not famous. Then I remembered, I don't even know what's inside the package. So technically, I'm still waiting for my big break.